Good morning. I'm off to meet Lee today. I'm meant to be using the Renault. It is 0 degrees. This car has no heating at all. And, well, there's quite a lot of water in the rear footwells, which, to be fair, I've swept it out with a brush. But I've said to Lee, if the Renault starts, then we'll use the Renault. So let's give it a go. Yes, it starts. Excellent. Let's go. Well, the Renault is bimbling along quite nicely. It is minus 0.5 degrees, but thankfully the heaters in my Renault are working quite well, actually. You can see that there's quite a lot of mud down the windows of my Renault because I've been driving it through all manner of puddles and mud because it is four-wheel drive. And that is exactly the way you're supposed to use a 1969 Renault that is definitely not a 2005 BMW X5 SUV. All right, I know everybody wanted me to use the Renault as per the poll that I put up on YouTube a few days ago. However, there's two factors to this. One, it is minus 0.5 of a degree and the Renault doesn't have any heaters at all, or any carpet, or any insulation, or even any blowers. And not only that, if it does get condensated inside, it doesn't have any window winders. And if I do get into some trouble, the brakes aren't quite working correctly, and there's no seat belts, because the window winders and the seat belts are in my storage container, which is about 15 miles away. So the honest answer to why am I not using the Renault is the Renault isn't ready, and I should stop promising to use it for things before it's ready. We used it for that one McMaster day out, and it wasn't really ready then. It had no seat belts and it had no window wipers, but it was a bright day and I was only driving it 3 miles. Driving it an hour on main roads is a bit of a different thing. The Renault is booked in to go back to Paul, who's done all of the ignition bits and has actually helped it run and start properly, even though it didn't start this morning. It's going back into Paul for phase 2. Phase 2 of my Renault 10 is to stop the roof from leaking small swimming pools into the rear footwells. Genuinely had that much water in the rear footwells the other day. I brushed it out with like a paddle. So we need to stop the roof leaking, then we need to stop the doors leaking, then we need to stop the windows leaking, and when we've done all that, we can look at some insulation and some carpet. In order to fix the roof, probably going to be really honest with you and say we're going to cut a big hole in it and make it a rag top. But all of this is still to come. The Renault's not ready. The Volvo, the gold one that I said I'd use as well, picked it up yesterday, still leaking exhaust fumes into the cabin, and no other cars are at my house. So we're in the BMW X5, which is the same car that I used for the last time I met Lee the McMaster, so I've broken my own rule. However, today is not a challenge day, it's a meet-up and planning day. And also this BMW X5, in an absolute twist of unpredictability, is for some reason the only car I want to drive at the minute. It's January, well, blue skies today, but the weather has been absolutely naff. We've had loads of flooding, the roads are covered in mud and crap, and although I thought I'd get back from that McMaster challenge across the country and immediately want to get rid of my X5, I've basically driven it every day since. We used it instead of the 3 Series for our family road trip to Northumberland, and it was brilliant. She's left me for dead. She's left me for dead on Holy Island. I've been left for dead. Oh no, she stopped. Right, I better catch up with her. Just the other day, I did like the post-Christmas tip run, where everything you've bought goes to the tip, straight to landfill. Now, you can't do any of that with my 3 Series because it's a saloon. I don't know why I bought a 3 Series saloon because I needed a car there and then, so there we go. But my 3 Series saloon is tiny by comparison, and having the X5 has just confirmed that I don't really believe in saloon cars, or sedans if you're watching from the States. So the X5 has sort of become my new best friend. Also, look, it's cold. It's really cold. The last thing I want to be doing now is like battling with an old Renault and like wiping the window and having my feet freeze to ice blocks whilst trying to drive to Stratford. for a video that no one will probably watch. So I'm going to use my X5 because it started and it had diesel in it. And it's my YouTube channel and I'll do what I want. Haha. A little bit further down the road now, and we have moved to Shires. We've gone from Worcestershire Shire into Warwickshire Shire on the way out to Stratford, which is very famous because it's on a river. And there was a guy that lived there, grew up there, wrote some plays there, allegedly, we think he did, had a theatre, burnt down, then they rebuilt it. It was called Bill. Wrote some stuff about some things, very popular with Chinese tourists. But we're going to skirt around that place and go on to Caffeine and Machine, which is a sort of bit of a mecca it's become for petrol heads, and they do coffee and food. And I've only been there twice, actually. I turned up there for a Volvo meeting once in my Volvo, and I turned up and I was like, "Hey, I'm the Volvo guy from YouTube." And they said, "Have you got a ticket?" I said, "No." Didn't realise it was a ticketed event. And they said, "Oh, you'll have to loop round the car park and then go straight back onto the main road and come back when the event's over." So I did. Oh, funny. My Smithy Volvo, the 2-litre estate that didn't have a fuel gauge that worked. Well, I was driving out here once to meet someone, and I kind of knew that it was running out of fuel, and I figured if I could just get over the brow of this hill, I could coast the rest of the way and make it to a petrol station. And it started to conk out about here. Thankfully, there was no one behind me, so I rolled with the momentum that I had up the hill to, you'll see in a minute, there's a right hand turn there. I went into that little turn and I went down there, and that's where it conked out completely. Luckily, I had about £5 worth of petrol in a plastic fuel canister, which I was able to put in, and then I rejoined the road here and carried on with my day. Anecdote. Well, now this is funny. You know how in Top Gear, James May has a horrendously bad sense of direction? And some of you in the comments have called Lee, the Macmaster, Captain Slow. Well, I'm only filming on the one camera today, so I didn't capture the genius moment when he phoned me. But what's happened is, we've discussed where we're meeting, and we've discussed a meeting point time, and then he's put it in his sat-nav, and he has managed to put in the wrong Caffeine and Machine. I'm now 5 minutes from the destination. He's just phoned me. He's 72 miles away, having gone down towards Milton Keynes to go to Caffeine and the Machine, which is not the same as Caffeine and Machine. One of them is just up the road here in Stratford. The other one is in Bedfordshire Shire. So, although I lost the challenge for bringing the wrong car, that put me on -1 for today. Lee has now got himself onto -1 for going to the wrong destination. Therefore, we both end up at 0. So even when we try to not have a challenge where it isn't a challenge, it's just to meet up to talk about some plans and have some breakfast and have a laugh, I still have managed to beat him by more than an hour, even though I left late, and I knew that I'd left late when I left, and I was actually phoning him to say, I'm going to arrive at 15:15, not at 10. I'm going to be late, you win. I phoned him to say that. And then he said to me, oh, I'm almost near Milton Keynes. I was like, why the f*** are you anywhere near Milton Keynes? I didn't know there were 2 Caffeine and Machines. But he knew that it was in or around or near Stratford. So there should have been a moment when he keyed in his sat-nav and his trip time was an hour more than normal. That would have been the point where he should have gone, hold on a minute, I might have been a bit of a bell end here. I don't even know what to say. I'm going to sit and have a nice coffee at Caffeine and Machine, not Caffeine and the Machine, and I'm going to browse some cars on Facebook Marketplace. Maybe I can find one in Stratford locally, get a taxi out to it, and pick it up and bring it to Caffeine and Machine in time for Lee to arrive. And then I could be like, oh, that was close. Yeah, we both arrived within 5 minutes of each other. Oh dear.